I also want to thank Hyla Cass. She's a very fine orthomolecular psychiatrist for her very fine introduction to me. Thank you, Hyla. 1960, I met Bill W. at a meeting in New York City. We were at an interesting meeting that was put on by Eileen Garrett. She was the president of the American Parapsychology Foundation, and Bill was very interested in these phenomena. We met there, and we became great friends. We began to talk, and then Humphrey and I started telling him about the results we were getting with niacin and alcoholics. Bill was a bright guy. He was so intelligent that he immediately saw the possibilities. If we were right, then we had a way of doing even more than AA could do by itself. He didn't want to get rid of AA, but he wanted to make it better, because the results of AA by itself without the nutritional component are not that good, even though it has been helpful to millions of people. So Bill became quite excited. I was at that time working with the Huxley Institute of Biosocial Research, and I was its president for a while, which meant I had to go to New York City quite often. I think I've been there at least 100 times. And every time we went, I would meet with Bill. We would have lunch together, we'd spend an evening together, we'd talk together. I learned so much from him. I learned more from him about the field of addiction than from any other single source. One day, I'm in New York City at his hotel, spending an evening together. And Bill says, "Abram, I have 30 charts here I want to go over with you." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I've examined 30 of my friends, all members of AA, all highly classed artists and scientists, and actors and actresses, highly qualified people." He said, "I've given them all niacin." And I said, "Well, isn't that great? What happened?" He said, "Well, 10 of them were normal in 1 month. The other 10 were normal the second month." He said, "The third 10 haven't yet recovered." And that was fantastic, because that exactly reproduced what we were seeing at this time in Saskatchewan. So Bill became terribly excited about this. And he also discovered, by handing out niacin freely, that it had many other properties. It had many other properties. For example, it was excellent for arthritis. And this based upon the work of Bill Kaufman, who published his papers in 1945, 1950. He also discovered from us that it lowered cholesterol levels. We had discovered this in Saskatchewan and published our paper in 55. It is the best compound known for lowering cholesterol and elevating the HDL, the good one. In contrast to the statins, which is fraudulent, which really do not help anyone except the drug companies who sell them, niacin, in fact, is really good, and it is the only compound that has been proven by the American government in a huge coronary drug study to cut down the death rate amongst men who had already had one coronary. And it is today the golden standard for lowering cholesterol, even though most doctors don't know about it. Bill knew about all this, and he decided that he was going to distribute this information to the organization called the International Doctors in AA. There's so many doctors who are alcoholic, they have their own medical association. And they had been after him for years to come and talk to him, but he was getting cautious. He didn't want to become God. As he said, he didn't want to deify himself. So he was gradually withdrawing and was doing less and less public speaking. So it occurred to him that this would be an advantage. So they invited him to come to a meeting held in Indianapolis on the Speedway, one of their motels. And he said to them, "If you invite Dr. Hoffer to come, I'll come and speak to you too." Well, hell, they would have invited the devil to get Bill. They didn't care about me. They wanted Bill. They would do anything to get Bill to talk to them. So Bill contacted me and said, "Will you come?" And I said, "Delighted." So we appeared in Indianapolis. And there was this great meeting. I was surrounded by doctors, all members of AA, and Bill W. And Bill got up and gave a beautiful presentation outlining what I had just outlined to you. And then I got up and spoke. And I outlined on a more scientific way exactly what it was we were doing. Now, I loved these doctors in AA. They were really practical doctors. Today, if I were to present such findings to a meeting, and they would decide to investigate it, first of all, they would appoint a committee. They would investigate it. They'd have to get approval from all their scientific committees, their ethics committees, And by the time they decided to do something 2 years later, the idea would be dead. This meeting was different. They appointed a committee of three. 3 members of this committee were supposed to look into our claims, and they did the right thing. They all started taking niacin. And a month later, they all said, hey, it's great. Every one of them felt better because they were taking niacin. So now Bill had the official sanction of the AA doctors. And he then wrote a communication to AA physicians. Some of you in this meeting might have seen it, but they're fantastic communications because he was also a good writer. And in this communication, he let the members of AA know that in addition to AA, they should also take niacin. Now, he didn't emphasize the rest of nutrition because he was being very cautious about what he did. And he ran into a lot of trouble because the international AA in New York City were very upset with Bill. Now, it was rather interesting because he had appointed them all. They were all close friends of his. And yet the doctors on this committee felt that Bill W., who didn't have an MD, didn't have the right to talk about vitamins. In the same way, they accused Linus Pauling of being a fraud because he didn't have an MD. Therefore, what right did he have to talk about medicine? So this had a great impact, and by the time Bill died, the thing was moving really very fast. There was a lot of corroboration. It wasn't just a matter of hearsay, just a few people getting results. Dr. David Hawkins, who was a psychiatrist on Long Island, a very good friend of mine, he was in charge of a clinic, and he was trained as a psychoanalyst, and they were doing psychoanalysis. But he was very fond of Bill, and he became excited, and we all became very close friends. And he began to treat alcoholics, schizophrenics, with niacin. Now, this is the worst possible group of patients you can have because as soon as you get their schizophrenia under control, they become psychotic, or they start drinking again. They either are drinking or not drinking. I'll give you an example of a young woman that came to see me in Saskatoon many years ago. Her problem was she was alcoholic. She hated alcohol. She hated being drunk. But she hated worse hearing voices. And she discovered that whenever she drank, the voices went away, and whenever she joined AA, they came back. What was she going to do? It's a terrible problem. So she came to talk to me, and I said, we have a third way. The third way is for you to get well without the voices coming back. And I put her on niacin. And within 2 or 3 months, she was clear of her voices, and she no longer had to drink. She was a good member of AA. In fact, she was one of that group in Saskatoon of Schizophrenics Anonymous that I had organized with Bill W.'s help. It was the first Schizophrenics Anonymous group we ran, and she became one of our experts in helping these people deal with how to run a meeting. And I think that we have to do what many of the clinics in the States are now beginning to do and do really well, which is to do a thorough examination of the biochemistry and the metabolism of these alcoholics, addicts, to make the proper change by the addition of the proper diet, take away the foods to which they're allergic. That's very important. Take away sugar. Have them go onto a diet that doesn't make them sick. Encourage them to not drink, not to take drugs. Have them join AA if that's essential. Give them the support that they need to convert them from people who are essentially sick to people who are normal. I think this is extremely important. Now, it is for this reason that I want to thank your organization. I want to thank Ms. Rubens for being so helpful in arranging this. I want to thank the CARA for giving me this award, which I certainly do appreciate. And when next my family comes from Toronto to visit me, I'll be happy to show them this fantastic award. Thank you.